There's a woman who walks into every room the same way. She doesn't announce herself. He doesn't need to. Within seconds, something in the room shifts. A posture straightens, a voice drops half a register, attention moves toward her without an invitation extended. Nobody ever comments on her age. They comment on something else entirely, something harder to name that reads unmistakably as money. Not loud money, quiet money. The kind that has never once needed a logo to prove itself. I spent years trying to isolate what that quality actually was. It wasn't the dress. It wasn't even the shoes, though those matter too. It was smaller than that and far more precise. It lived in the details most people glance past. The metal at a wrist, the shape of a frame, the way a scarf sits at a collarbone. 8 objects. 8 specific accessories that, worn with intention, change the entire register of how a woman over 50 is read by a room. Not younger. Richer. There is a difference, and once you learn to see it, you will never miss it again. None of it requires a designer label. None of it requires a logo visible from across the street. It requires only knowing exactly which details to choose and which ones to leave alone. The first object is the cuff bracelet. Picture a dinner table where 2 women sit across from each other, both in navy, both impeccably dressed. One wears a thin gold chain bracelet that slides and catches on her sleeve all evening. The other wears a single wide gold cuff, solid, sculptural, sitting still against her wrist. The room's eye keeps returning to the second woman, though she has said very little. The secret sits in 3 details. First, weight. A cuff should feel substantial, never hollow or tinny. Second, finish. A brushed or matte gold reads considerably more expensive than anything high shine. Third, restraint. One cuff, worn alone, communicates far more than a wrist stacked with 5 thin bangles ever could. Wear it with a simple black turtleneck and tailored trousers, and the cuff becomes the entire sentence. Coco Chanel understood this decades ago. Jewelry is not decoration, it is punctuation. The second object is the sunglasses, and this is the piece most women get quietly wrong. There's a specific error that happens at airports and outside cafes everywhere. Oversized, trend-driven frames that expire within a season. The alternative is a structured frame in tortoiseshell or solid black, the kind Audrey Hepburn wore in nearly every photograph that still circulates today. 3 details make the difference. First, the frame shape. A clean cat eye or a classic rectangular silhouette outlasts anything trend-led. Second, the material, acetate, not plastic, holds its shape and its shine for years. Third, the proportion. The frame should sit close to the face, not swallow it. A woman in a plain white shirt and these glasses looks finished before she has added a single other thing. And there's a third detail that almost nobody talks about. The one that separates a woman who simply owns accessories from a woman who has actually studied them. The third object is the structured handbag, and here is where the no-logo principle matters most. Consider 2 colleagues leaving the same meeting. One carries a bag covered in an oversized monogram print. The other carries a plain, structured leather tote in a neutral tone with no visible branding whatsoever. Strangers assume the second bag cost more, even when the reverse is often true. The secret is in 3 details. First, structure. A bag that holds its own shape rather than slouching reads as considered. Second, hardware. Small, matte, tonal hardware always outperforms anything large or shiny. Third, color. Camel, black, or a deep chocolate brown outlasts every trend color a season could offer. Pair it with a simple wool coat, and the entire look announces a woman who has stopped needing to prove anything. The fourth object is the leather belt, and it does something almost no other accessory can. 2 women can wear the exact same shirt dress, loose and unbelted on one, cinched at the natural waist on the other. The belted version reads as intentional. The unbelted version reads as an afterthought. The details here are precise. First, width. A slim to medium belt, never anything oversized or logo heavy. Second, buckle. Small in a matte gold or silver, never a large branded plate. Third, placement. Always at the natural waist, never sitting low on the hips. The Row has built an entire design philosophy around exactly this kind of restraint, and it is available to anyone who understands the principle, not just the price tag. Wait until you reach the 6th object. It's the one stylists mention most often when they talk about what separates well-dressed from quietly wealthy. The 5th object is the drop earring, worn alone rather than stacked. There's a particular error in small hoops and stud earrings that disappear entirely on camera and in low light. They simply fail to register from more than a few feet away. A single elegant drop earring, by contrast, catches light near the jaw and draws the eye upward, toward the face rather than away from it. The three details are architecture, metal, and movement. Architecture, because a geometric or teardrop shape reads more sophisticated than anything overly ornate. Metal, because gold warms mature skin in a way that silver rarely does. Movement, because a drop earring that grazes the jaw as a woman turns her head creates a subtle, almost cinematic effect that stud earrings simply cannot replicate. Worn with hair pulled back, this single detail becomes the focal point of an entire face. The sixth object is the silk scarf, tied with precision rather than draped without thought. Two women can leave the same closet wearing the identical trench coat. One ties a silk scarf loosely around her neck, ends uneven, not undone. The other ties hers in a single, deliberate knot at the collarbone, ends tucked with intention. The difference between them is not the scarf. It is the tying. The details are fabric, print, and placement. Fabric, because silk drapes and catches light in a way polyester never will. Print, because a classic equestrian or geometric print signals heritage rather than trend. Placement, because a scarf tied at the collarbone rather than loose at the throat elongates the neckline instantly. Diane von Furstenberg built a career on precisely this kind of deliberate, effortless-looking precision. The seventh object is the watch, and it is perhaps the most overlooked accessory of the entire 8. A phone tells time. A watch tells a room something else entirely. The three details are simplicity, metal, and strap. Simplicity, because a clean face without excessive dials or branding reads as considered rather than sporty. Metal, because a metal link bracelet in gold or two-tone outlasts every trend leather strap. Strap, because a slightly oversized, masculine-leaning face on a woman's wrist has become one of the clearest current signals of quiet confidence. A woman checking the time with a simple flick of the wrist communicates more authority in that single gesture than an entire outfit sometimes can. The eighth and final object is the cashmere wrap, the piece nearly everyone underestimates until they finally try it. There's a specific scene that plays out at every restaurant with air conditioning turned slightly too low. One woman shivers through the entire meal, arms crossed, visibly uncomfortable. The other reaches for a folded cashmere wrap draped over the back of her chair and settles it over her shoulders without breaking her sentence. The details are fiber, color, and drape. Fiber, because genuine cashmere, even in a small percentage blend, moves differently than acrylic ever will. Color, because a neutral tone camel, cream, charcoal pairs with literally everything already in the closet. Drape, because a wrap should fall naturally over the shoulders rather than bunch or fold stiffly. This is the accessory that quietly signals a woman has planned for comfort without ever sacrificing composure. It is the kind of detail that Grace Kelly understood instinctively, the wrap thrown over the shoulders on a cool evening in Monaco. Never fussed with, never explained, simply there the moment it was needed. There is a version of this same principle at play in every one of the 8 objects. None of them shout. None of them need to. A cuff sits still instead of sliding. A frame holds its shape instead of chasing a season. A bag stands structured instead of slouching. Each one is a small, deliberate refusal to over-explain, and that refusal is precisely what a room reads as wealth. At 50, most women are still being told this is the moment to fade into the background. It isn't. It is, in fact, the opposite. You have spent decades learning what looks right on you and what doesn't, a kind of discernment that a 25-year-old simply has not had time to develop yet. Presence is not something you chase after 50. It is something you have already earned, and these 8 objects are simply the language for expressing it. Nobody in that room will know the names of these details. They will only know that something about you reads differently than it did a moment before, that the room has quietly reorganized itself around your presence, without a single word spoken to make it happen. This is not about spending more. Several of these 8 pieces likely already exist somewhere in your closet, waiting to be worn with a little more intention than before. A cuff instead of a stack. A single earring instead of 3. A belt instead of nothing at all. The shift is rarely about acquisition. It is almost always about editing. Which of these 8 accessories are you going to add first? Tell me in the comments. And if this decoded something you've sensed for years but never had the words for, subscribe. I share one of these observations every week, made specifically for women exactly like you.